know that renin-angiotensin system, we've talked about it in the past, would eventually create angiotensin 2. And then ACE2 enzyme was needed to convert the angiotensin 2 into angiotensin 1 to 7. I have done these discussion in 2 videos called hypercoagulability with COVID-19. So if you wanted to see the mechanism, please see it over there. The end result is that angiotensin 2 is more, which causes more inflammation, which causes hypercoagulability, which causes severe issues. Vitamin D reduces the activity of renin-angiotensin system, again by genetic modulation of the cells. And the result is that the inflammation, the severe inflammation, is reduced. Again, it's a small study, but look, out of 50 patients, just 1 patient went to the ICU, and even him or her got discharged. And out of the 26 patients who were receiving the same exact drugs except vitamin D, 13 ended up in ICU and 2 died. So renin-angiotensin system modulation is very, very important. And enables autophagy of the infected cell. This is very, very important. This is also something where ivermectin works in. Remember that with ivermectin, we had this discussion that the virus sends its cargo into the nucleus and causes the nucleus to not be able to defend itself. What was the defense mechanism? There were 2 defense mechanisms. Number 1, the infected cell will produce interferon gamma, which will cause the nearby cells to become stronger. Secondly, the infected cell would try to kill itself. So in certain cases, what happens is, here is the virus. Virus is going to increase the protein. This is coronavirus. It increases a protein called SKP2, which in turn inhibits a protein called Becklin-1. Becklin-1 is responsible to tell the cell to kill itself, to cause a suicide because you're infected, you're not going to survive. So before the virus replicates in you and use your resources a lot, just kill yourself. But the virus already blocks it. This is where the ivermectin comes in and says, okay, virus, you cannot do that. And the cell would still be able to defend itself. This is where vitamin D comes in as well. Guys, vitamin D can actually then work like ivermectin. Vitamin D comes in and what it does is it produces a protein called Klotho protein. Klotho protein in turn causes Becklin-1's production, which causes the cell to kill itself. So virally infected cell very quickly kills itself and the virus doesn't have the resources available to continue to multiply. And vitamin D helps with that. Can you imagine this? Ivermectin's function is here. Hydroxychloroquine's function of immune modulation is here. Many of the immune system's functions you would see are also going to be modulated here. Vitamin D should be eaten all the time. Again, keeping in mind your health, keeping in mind your calcium levels, your cardiac level, your hypertension level, your kidneys levels, your liver functions. But maintain your vitamin D levels. You would enjoy your life. You would, at least at this time, you'll be much more protected than those who are vitamin D deficient. And please, I beg you, share this video with others. I have never asked to share other than at the end of every video, but I think this is an important topic. So here, vitamin D also reduces the release of cytokines and chemokines. And here for the immune system, I have only made one cell as a representation of the immune system. These are the cytokines and chemokines that are released, and they are released by many different kinds of cells within the immune system. For example, interferon alpha and gamma. Interferon alpha is released by macrophages. Interferon gamma are released by cytotoxic T cells and T helper 1 cells. Interleukin 1, interleukin 6 are released by macrophages and dendritic cells. Interleukin 12 are released by macrophages, and so on. Tumor necrosis factor macrophages. Chemokines, remember this is where the RANTES and the nivolumab comes in? Check this out. Vitamin D reduces the release of all of them. What else do we want? It reduces the release of all of them. And that results in a more calm immune system. We go for leronlimab or we go for remdesivir or go for steroids. Here we have vitamin D that can help us be better. Okay, continuing on. So immune system modulation, very important. Then vitamin D increases production of cathelicidins. And I have done that discussion in the past as well. Cathelicidins are usually released by the immune system cells. These proteins are called also defensins. They would cause holes and punctures in the target pathogen and cause it to burst open and die. And vitamin D helps open up the genes that help produce defensins and cathelicidins. Important one. Of course, so there's a question, what about RANTES? Same thing here. So we are talking about this C3 and 5. That is the RANTES side. So it actually down modulates the RANTES as well. It down modulates the chemokines. And yesterday's discussion, we talked about the chemokines in the inflammation, that causes the white blood cells to come to the site of infection. Leronlimab, for example, blocks that, or at least in Curie, in mechanism does that. Here, vitamin D does that too. For a short period of time, people may have to take higher doses. I take at least 5,000 international units on a daily basis. I take calcium with that and I take vitamin K2 with that. So back here, increase production of cathelicidin. And increase production of surfactant. Surfactant is the fluid in our alveoli that keeps them open. And vitamin D helps open up the genes that produce surfactant in the type 2 pneumocytes. Beautiful mechanism. So not only it is helping the barrier function, not only it is modulating the immune system, not only it is keeping the inflammation low, it is also helping to keep the lungs open. Love it. Reduces tissue factor production. Now this is on the hypercoagulability, I should have said over here. Hypercoagulability prevention or reduction. So under this one, It reduces the tissue factor production. What is tissue factor? When some tissue cell gets broken down, it produces tissue factor, which is a breakdown product. And that tissue factor in turn causes the production of thrombi. If the damage is to the blood vessel, again, hypercoagulability, I've done that discussion. Vitamin D works on the genes that produce tissue factors and reduces them. Love it. Increases antithrombin and thrombomodulins. Increases the gene expression that causes the production of antithrombin and thrombomodulin, which reduce the thrombus formation. So imagine if it is given with aspirin-like thing. This is beautiful. Now, talking about, and by the way, let me just very quickly show you all of this over here. So this was the discussion we've already looked at. Here is the another study that says vitamin D receptor stimulation to reduce acute respiratory distress syndrome in patients with coronavirus infections. Revise on this thing. So over here, all those mechanisms that I described, they have those mechanisms in detail as well. And somebody had asked me the question about Rantis. Can you see here? So all of them, and I have these links in the description as well. I have been working hard for cool beans. So here, if you see, if I scroll down, so all of them, and I have these links in the description as well. I have been working hard for cool beans. So here, if you see, if I scroll down, all those mechanisms are mentioned here as well. It's just that I elaborated them too. So here, function with the Rantis, here the function, all those mechanisms are mentioned here as well. It's just that I elaborated them too. So here, here, if you see, if I scroll down, all those mechanisms are mentioned here as well. It's just that I elaborated them too. So here, function with the Rantis, here the function with the epithelial barrier, here is a renin angiotensin system modulation, here is the SKP2 protein modulation and neutrophil modulation, here the other cells with the pneumocyte and producing surfactants, defensine and cathalicitins. So I have actually, and then coagulation with the pneumocyte and producing surfactants, defensine and cathalicitins. So I have and then coagulation with the tissue factors and thrombin and thrombomodulin. My point is that all of this is written here. This is not Mubin just bringing up something out of the air and saying here is something that you should just trust. We have evidence here, and this study in turn, whenever they made a point, they further refer to the study from where that point is coming. So everything here is evidence-based. Okay, so now let's look at the deficiency. Worldwide, 7% of the people have severe deficiency. 7% of 7 billion people. That's a lot of people. 40%, almost half of the world's population is deficient in vitamin D. 65% in India are deficient. 42% Americans are deficient. And please now remember, I am here in America, so I would talk more in detail for America. 42% in America that are deficient are not uniformly deficient, meaning it's not that you have any 4,200 people in a room and 42 are deficient. Old age folks are more deficient compared to youngsters. Women are post-menopausal women are more deficient compared to pre-menopausal women. People who are in the poverty stratum, who are in the lower income class, they are more deficient because of malabsorption and malnutrition. So it is not that we have a uniform distribution of 40% deficiency. For example, in African Americans, 82% of their adults are deficient. That is terrible. Hispanics, 62% of Hispanics are deficient. Just correcting this much can be a game changer for the US. Then you know that 40% of the Americans are obese and 18% of American children are obese. And obese folks, majority of them are vitamin D deficient. And I want to talk about that. Please do me a favor. I would request you, I've never begged you for this, please share it. Because this has to go to people in the US at least.